What does minus 40 degrees actually feel like when your only shelter is a rock wall and a fire that burns for 3 hours before the wood runs out? In the Wakhan corridor, in the Hindu Kush, in the remote valleys of Nuristan and Badakhshan, people have lived through winters that would kill a modern city dweller inside a single night. These are not survival stories born from desperation. They are ordinary lives. And the techniques these communities use are specific, intelligent, and built over centuries of trial and error at altitude. This is how Afghans survive frozen nights in mountain caves. Not every cave is shelter. Afghan mountain communities, particularly the Wakhi people of the Wakhan corridor and the Nuristani groups living across the northeastern ridgelines, know that a cave that faces the wrong direction can be more dangerous than sleeping in the open. Wind channeling is the primary threat. A cave mouth that opens directly east or north creates a natural funnel for the brutal winds that descend from the Pamir and Karakoram ranges during winter. Temperatures in the Wakhan during January and February regularly drop to minus 30 or even minus 40 degrees Celsius at elevation. A steady wind through an exposed cave entrance in those temperatures makes survival without fire nearly impossible. The preference is for caves with south-facing or southeast-facing entrances. At high altitude in Afghanistan, a south-facing opening captures whatever solar radiation exists during the short winter days, allowing the rock itself to absorb residual warmth. Rock, particularly granite and limestone, which dominate the Hindu Kush geology, holds thermal energy and releases it slowly through the night. A cave that has been warmed even passively by afternoon sun will be noticeably warmer by midnight than a cave of identical size facing north. Depth matters too, but not infinitely. A cave that runs too deep without ventilation becomes a trap for carbon monoxide when fires are lit. The ideal depth for a fire-heated cave shelter is roughly 3 to 4 meters from the entrance, deep enough that the rock walls create a buffer from external wind and cold, shallow enough that air circulates and combustion gases escape. Wakhi herders and travelers have passed knowledge of specific cave locations across generations. Certain caves along established pastoral migration routes are known by name or by description and are used season after season because their geometry works. The floor of the cave also matters. Cold ground pulls heat from the body faster than cold air does. A cave floor that sits slightly elevated from the entrance, meaning a floor that rises gently toward the back, is preferred because cold air, being denser, pools near the entrance and away from sleeping positions. Experienced travelers will also check the cave ceiling for stalactite formations or water staining that indicates active seepage. Ice formation on a cave ceiling in winter means moisture accumulation, which worsens cold exposure significantly. The clothing system used by mountain Afghans is not random. It is a layered system developed for specific altitude conditions and for the specific physiological demands of high-altitude work, which involves periods of heavy exertion followed by rapid cooling when rest begins. Getting this wrong means sweating heavily during movement, which soaks inner layers, and then being exposed to lethal wind chill during rest stops with wet clothing against the skin. The innermost layer in traditional mountain Afghan dress is typically a long, loose shirt and loose trousers made from cotton or lightweight wool. Cotton is more common at lower elevations, while wool becomes dominant above 2,000 meters. The looseness is intentional. A tight garment against sweating skin in cold weather creates a conductive pathway that drains heat rapidly. A loose layer allows a thin buffer of warmed air between skin and fabric. Over this goes the Pirahan Tunban in its heavier winter form, often wool, and then the most critical outer garment in the Afghan mountain cold, the pakol in its function as wind protection for the head, and most importantly, the patu. The patu is a heavy wool shawl or blanket, typically 2 meters long and 1 meter wide, woven from the wool of Afghan sheep breeds that produce a particularly dense fiber. It is not merely clothing, it is a portable shelter. Mountain men in the Hindu Kush wrap the patu around their shoulders and over their heads, and it functions simultaneously as windbreak, insulation layer, and sleeping blanket. At rest, in a cold cave or exposed location, the patu is wrapped tight around the entire upper body and head, creating a self-contained warm air pocket. The shapan is also used in colder mountain areas, particularly in the north and northeast. A shapan is a long quilted coat, heavily padded with raw cotton batting and covered in a striped or solid fabric. In Badakhshan and the northern mountain provinces, chapans are worn throughout winter travel and outdoor work. The cotton padding in a traditional chapan provides significant dead air insulation comparable to a modern synthetic fill jacket. Multiple chapans worn one over another are a documented practice among travelers caught in severe mountain cold. Footwear is perhaps the most critical and most overlooked element. In the mountain zones, traditional felt boots called moccasin-style wool-felted footwear are crafted locally. Felt, which is made by matting wool fibers under heat and pressure rather than weaving them, has exceptional insulating properties because the matted fiber structure traps air at the microscopic level. Local craftspeople in Badakhshan and Nuristan produce thick felt soles and uppers. Over these felt boots, a leather outer is sometimes added to prevent moisture absorption from snow. The combination creates a boot system that maintains warmth even after hours of exposure to snow and ice, which is critical for the walkie herders, who must check on their yaks during the night and winter. Lighting a fire above 3,000 meters in Afghanistan is a fundamentally different challenge than fire making at lower elevations. Oxygen availability drops significantly at altitude, which means combustion is less efficient. Wood that would ignite easily at 1,500 meters may refuse to sustain a flame above 3,000 without careful management. The Afghan mountain communities who have lived at these altitudes for generations have developed fire starting and fire maintenance techniques specific to the thin air environment. Kindling selection is the first step. Dried juniper branches, which grow across the mountain zones of Badakhshan, Nuristan, and the fringes of the Wakhan, are prized as kindling because juniper wood contains resinous oils that allow it to ignite even with limited oxygen. The resin burns with a lower activation energy requirement than plain cellulose wood. Experienced firemakers collect and store dried juniper specifically for winter fire starting. The base of a juniper fire is always the finest possible material: dried grass, shredded bark fiber, dried dung powder, or animal fat-soaked cloth. Once the fire is established, the challenge shifts to fuel conservation. Wood is scarce above the tree line, which in the Wakhan corridor begins quite low compared to more temperate mountain ranges. Above the tree line, which may occur as low as 3,500 meters in parts of the Wakhan, the primary fuel shifts to dried yak dung and dried shrub material, particularly thorny scrub species like hawthorn and wild rose that grow in dense patches along dry riverbeds at moderate altitude. These shrubs burn hot but briefly, which requires a different fire management approach than slow-burning log fires. At altitude with limited fuel, Afghan mountain travelers build small fires deliberately positioned to maximize radiated heat towards sleeping bodies. Rather than building a large open fire in the center of a cave, experienced travelers build a small fire near the back wall of the cave, where the rock face captures and reflects heat back toward the sleeping area. The rock also heats up over the course of several hours and continues radiating warmth after the fire dies, extending effective heating by 1 to 2 hours beyond the last fuel input. This radiant rock warming is a specific and deliberate technique. Fire timing is also strategic. In extended cold survival situations, experienced mountain travelers do not burn fuel continuously through the night. A fire built in the early evening warms the rock walls and floor of the cave, and the travelers sleep while the rock radiates. A second small fire is built in the hours just before dawn, which is when external temperatures are lowest and the stored rock warmth has been fully depleted. This two-fire structure, rather than a continuous burn, uses approximately half the fuel while providing adequate warmth through the night. Understanding how mountain Afghans eat in winter reveals a nutritional strategy deliberately calibrated to cold weather survival. The body generates heat through metabolic processes, and the type of food consumed directly affects how much heat is produced and for how long. Mountain Afghan winter diet is dominated by foods that maximize this internal heat generation. Fat is the highest calorie density food available and is prioritized in mountain winter diets. Among the Waki, sheep tail fat, called dumba, is a prized and specifically consumed winter food. Afghan sheep breeds, particularly the Karakul and the fat-tailed breeds kept in the mountain zones, store significant fat reserves in their broad tails. This tail fat is rendered and consumed directly, mixed into dishes, or eaten solid. Fat metabolism produces more heat per gram than carbohydrate or protein metabolism, and the thermogenic effect of eating fat is well established. Consuming a significant portion of fat before sleep helps maintain core body temperature through the night by providing the body with sustained metabolic fuel. Dried mulberries are consumed extensively in mountain Afghanistan during winter. The mulberry tree grows widely in the valleys of Badakhshan, Nuristan, and Kunar, and the fruit is dried in summer and stored in large quantities for winter. Dried mulberries are extremely calorie-dense relative to their weight and volume, providing quick-release carbohydrate energy that produces immediate body warmth. They are also portable and require no preparation, making them critical trail food during winter travel. Butter tea, called chai, with a significant fat content, is consumed in large quantities in the Wakhan and higher altitude zones in a tradition that parallels Tibetan butter tea across the Pamir boundary. Tea boiled with yak butter and salt provides hydration, caffeine stimulation, and fat calories simultaneously. In extreme cold, dehydration is as dangerous as cold exposure because dry mountain air causes significant moisture loss through respiration, and dehydration accelerates hypothermia by reducing blood volume and circulation efficiency. Hot tea also directly warms the core through ingestion, raising core temperature more immediately than any external heating method. Kurut, which are hard-dried balls of sour yogurt or fermented milk, are a critical winter food across northern and mountain Afghanistan. They are made in summer and autumn when dairy production is high by draining yogurt and drying it into hard pellets. These pellets last indefinitely through winter without refrigeration because the fermentation and drying process prevents bacterial spoilage. Dissolved in hot water, kurut provides protein, fat, and probiotic bacterial cultures that support digestive health, which is important because a functioning digestive system generates significant internal heat during the digestion process. The act of digesting a large kurut meal provides measurable body warming for 2 to 3 hours after eating. How and where mountain Afghans sleep in cold conditions is itself a technical discipline. Random sleep positioning in a cold cave can result in fatal heat loss. The techniques used reflect an understanding of thermal physics that is expressed through cultural practice even when the scientific vocabulary for explaining it is absent. Group sleeping is the foundational strategy. Solo survival in Afghan mountain cold is genuinely difficult even with adequate clothing and fire. In groups, people sleep in tight physical contact, typically arranged in a row with bodies pressed together. The shared body heat between individuals in contact significantly reduces the rate of heat loss from each person compared to sleeping individually. The people sleeping in the interior of a group arrangement lose heat most slowly, which is why the most vulnerable individuals, young children and the elderly, are positioned in the middle of the sleeping group. In Wakhi winter camps, sleeping arrangements place women and children at the center with men on the outer positions. The ground interface is managed through a specific layering of available materials. Direct contact between a sleeping body and cold rock or frozen ground is avoided by any means possible. Animal skins with the wool or hair intact are placed as the primary ground layer. The insulative value of a thick sheepskin or yak hide with hair on is substantial. The irregular surface of the wool traps a significant layer of still air between the body and the ground, and the density of the hide prevents conductive heat loss into the rock. In temporary cave shelters, Dried grass or scrub vegetation is piled beneath skins to provide additional ground insulation. Head covering during sleep is non-negotiable in extreme cold. The head and neck are responsible for a disproportionately high percentage of body heat loss, because the blood vessels supplying the brain cannot be significantly constricted the way peripheral blood vessels can. Mountain Afghans sleep with their pakhols on, or with the patu wrapped around the head, leaving only a small breathing gap. In extreme cold, even this breathing gap is managed so that exhalation warms the air that will be re-inhaled, creating a microclimate of warmed, humid air around the face. Breathing technique during sleep preparation involves slowing breath rate to reduce moisture loss through respiration, while also concentrating exhaled warmth inside the patu or sleeping covering. Deep, slow breathing rather than rapid, shallow breathing conserves both moisture and warmth. This is not consciously practiced as a technique in the way a mountaineer might practice it, but it is a behavior that mountain-born communities have normalized through generational exposure. Dogs are also used for warmth in mountain Afghanistan, particularly among the Waki, where large livestock guardian dogs called Afghan shepherd dogs are kept. Sleeping with a large dog pressed against the body is a documented emergency warmth strategy at high altitude when other heating options fail. In the high mountain zones of Afghanistan, winter nights at extreme altitude can last 15 to 16 hours. Extended darkness combined with physical cold creates a psychological stress load that is a genuine threat to survival, independent of the physical cold itself. Passive despair, which in clinical terms relates to withdrawal and reduced activity in cold darkness, reduces metabolic heat generation and accelerates the physical danger of the cold. Mountain communities have developed cultural and social practices that specifically address this psychological dimension of winter survival. Collective storytelling during winter nights is documented across the mountain communities of Afghanistan and is not merely entertainment. It is a social technology for maintaining mental engagement and suppressing the passive withdrawal behavior that endangers survival. In Nuristani winter gatherings and in Waki family groups spending extended time in enclosed winter quarters, the spoken narrative tradition activates multiple cognitive and emotional systems simultaneously. The listener is mentally engaged, emotionally stimulated, and socially connected, all of which counteract the cognitive shutdown that cold-induced despair produces. Music serves the same function in a more immediate way. Traditional instruments like the dambura, a long-necked lute-style instrument, are standard components of winter camp equipment in northern Afghan mountain communities, not because of luxury, but because of function. The physical act of playing music generates mild metabolic heat through muscle activity. The auditory engagement disrupts the pattern of cognitive withdrawal. The social bonding that communal music creates releases neurochemical responses that measurably counteract the physiological depression of extreme cold and darkness. Prayer timing also structures the night in Muslim mountain communities across Afghanistan. The 5 daily prayers, which in winter include the Isha prayer in the evening and the Fajr prayer in the pre-dawn hours, create mandatory activity points during the night. The physical movements of prayer generate body heat. The mental focus required disrupts passive, cold-related withdrawal. The social coordination of prayer in a group setting reinforces the interpersonal connection that is itself psychologically protective. The pre-dawn Fajr prayer coincides almost exactly with the coldest point of the night, meaning it creates a mandatory activity and heat generation event at the most physiologically dangerous time. Work tasks distributed through the long winter nights also maintain metabolic activity. In Waki winter quarters, women engaged in weaving or spinning through winter nights maintain a level of muscle activity that generates body heat significantly above resting rate. Men perform equipment maintenance, rope making, and tool repair. These are not merely productive activities, they are thermogenic activities. A person engaged in light handwork generates notably more metabolic heat than a person lying still, and the mental engagement prevents the passive withdrawal that the cold and darkness continuously pressure mountain people toward.